Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, Mark Zuckerberg, co-founder of Facebook, Gautam Adani, founder of Adani Group, Richard Branson, co-founder of Virgin Group. You know what's common in all of them? You might be thinking, yes, they are all among the richest people in the world and they dominate the present world. Richard Branson is now the first person to reach the edge of space in his very own spacecraft. But there's one more thing that's common in all of them. All these people have successfully saved themselves from a trap in which every single person is proudly putting themselves into today. To change the perception of reality to such an extent that despite the abundance of information, no one is able to come to a sensible conclusion. I don't care what I have to do. If I have to move somewhere, start something new, or whatever it may be. I'm not going to put my children into a system that doesn't understand the gifts and abilities they have, just because they don't fit on the conveyor belt. And in the US, there are more than 500,000 people who don't send their children to school. Ironically, mostly all teachers, because they know how messed up the system is. And on the other hand, there's you, who might be studying in a college right now, completing assignments on time, maintaining 90% attendance, unwillingly memorizing books, and following every rule in the hope that when you graduate from college, you will have a graduation degree. You will get a good job. After that, you will buy a big house for your parents, buy an expensive car, get married, send your kids to a good school, and earn lots of money. But do you know what the reality is? When did you start preparing for this? How old were you? Sir, we were 18 years old at that time, and now we have just turned 30. 30 years old. What have you done in your life in the last 12 years? In life, sir, I just kept studying, kept getting degrees. I did my post-graduation in 3 subjects. I did B.Ed, I am CTET qualified, NETI qualified, sir. You finally get a graduation degree after 15 years of hard work. But now you find out that you are not getting a job. You give countless interviews, but everywhere you are rejected for one reason or another. People start making fun of you. They look at us with a sense of pity. Family, relatives, people don't talk that much, sir. And I haven't even gone to my village for 2 years now. It's sad, sir. What can I say? I can't even share my pain and suffering with anyone, sir. I have studied with great difficulty by teaching tuitions. I have been teaching tuition since 2012. I am still studying, and I haven't been able to achieve anything. On the contrary, an FIR has been lodged against us. You stop meeting and interacting with people, you lock yourself in a room and just keep praying to God that somehow I get a job. Gradually, your self-esteem, your self-confidence starts to decrease. Finally, you get a job somehow, but its salary is very low. But what else can you do out of compulsion? You start doing that job. The salary is not enough for you to save money and buy a house. So you take a home loan. Now that you have your own house, obviously you should also have a car. So you also take a car loan. Unknowingly, you have tied yourself up from all sides. Now you are constantly afraid of losing your job, because then how will I manage the household expenses? The home loan EMI is going on. The car loan EMI is going on. The children's school fees. Gradually, you suppress your own dreams and wake up silently in the morning, go to work, come home in the evening, whether you like doing that work or not. And then comes a day when you start to find this life normal, and gradually, you grow old while working. You will feel that maybe I was unlucky, that's why I couldn't do anything big in life, because I worked really hard. But the truth is something else, my friend, which has been hidden from you till date. The group of not got together a long time ago and decided this is what people should learn. Physics, biology, chemistry, and this is how they should learn. It's like the newspaper industry, right? More printing presses, more big buildings, right? Makes you wonder if those who built the schools were consciously aiming to break the will of the students who are part of the system. But they want them to be obedient. The higher purpose of a good university is to give you a foundation to fail, not a foundation to get an A. You have been blindly following this education system since childhood. That education system was designed to make you fail. That education system was designed to make you an obedient factory worker. You might think I'm just saying anything, but I promise, just give me a few minutes, and after that, you will understand this whole trap yourself very well. So, are you coming with me? Dhirubhai Ambani, Virat Kohli, Amir Khan, Narendra Modi. All of these people didn't get stuck in the trap of our current education system. Let's rewind back in time. It's the year 1806, and there's a war going on between Napoleon's army and Prussia. And in this war, Prussia, despite having one of the best armies, loses. The Prussian leaders couldn't understand how they could lose with such a strong army. After a lot of thinking, they realized that while their army was strong, during the war, the soldiers were using their own minds instead of following their superiors' orders. Whereas Napoleon's army was only and only following Napoleon's orders. And what was the consequence of this defeat? Prussia had to give half of its territory to Napoleon and also sign a peace agreement. Now the Prussian leaders faced a challenge to make sure this never happens again. But the question is, how would they do that? Well, after a lot of brainstorming, they came up with an idea and started building a system. What kind of system? Obviously a system to ensure that soldiers only do what they are told to do. And what could be the best possible way to do that? To control those brains that are not yet capable of thinking for themselves, who don't know right from wrong. So that whatever they are taught, they believe it to be true. And this is how an 8-year education system was built. The Prussian education system. From the age of 5 to 13, the education system became compulsory. What was its sole purpose? And the Prussians produced a universal education system in the late 1800s because they were afraid they were losing military superiority. And they wanted to produce a cadre of blindly obedient soldiers. That was expressly the purpose. To transform the coming generation into people who are obedient, who obey every word of their superiors and do as they are told without asking a single question. During this 8-year education, they are only taught and told enough to be able to follow the orders of their superiors, not enough to make them think for themselves. And just as the Prussian leaders had planned, this education system was giving them exactly the results they wanted. Thus, a system was invented that was going to change everything in the future, and that's exactly what happened. During that time, something else was spreading very quickly around the world. Guess what? From 1760 to 1840, the Industrial Revolution was at its peak. The global economy was rapidly shifting in a different direction. Until now, people were earning money by farming and making products with their own hands. But now machines started to dominate the world. A machine could produce far more in a single day than a human could in an entire month. But there was a problem. And what was that problem? A shortage of workers in factories. Because people were farming in their fields, making products with their own hands, running small businesses and earning money. So why would anyone leave all this and work as a laborer in someone else's factory? How to solve this problem? Well, the Prussian education system had already reached the higher-ups due to its results. And now different countries started modeling their education systems after this Prussian education system. And what was the sole purpose this time? This time, the sole purpose was to create a generation whose creativity was stifled, leaving them with only one option to earn money: to work as laborers in factories. Corporate types mostly wanted to produce a craze of obedient workers. And that's how it started to happen. The children of those who were earning money through farming and small businesses had their brains brainwashed in such a way that when they completed their education, they were left with only one option to earn money: working in factories. And thus, the shortage of laborers gradually began to disappear. Back then, our country was under British rule. But the British had a problem. They were just a handful of people, and it was very difficult to control such a large population. The year is 1835. Thomas Babington Macaulay, whom you might have read about in school as Lord Macaulay, he drafts a proposal to promote English education in India. And Lord William Bentinck, the then Governor-General of the East India Company, passes it through the English Education Act of 1835. And again, this education system is more or less based on the Prussian education system. And what was the objective this time? People thought that the British had our best interests at heart, that they wanted to teach everyone English. But what was the truth? Well, hear it from Macaulay himself. Education should create a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. Slowly but surely, the British achieved their goal. From clerks in offices to soldiers in the army, Indians were working everywhere. Now the British were using Indians to enslave Indians. The brainwashing had reached such an extent that Indians began to consider it their duty to follow British rules. You might be thinking, wow, the British were really clever. But well, it's been 76 years since independence. Everything is fine now, right? If you think so, then in a few minutes you will laugh at this very thought of yours. What is the first thought that comes to your parents' minds after you are born, or maybe even before you are born? You know, that I will send my child to study in a big school. Today, in our country, schools and colleges are becoming less about education and more about status. My son studies in a big school. My son studies in that college. As soon as you start speaking, your parents proudly get you admitted to a good school and then relax, thinking that they have secured their child's future by admitting them to a big school. I just have to pay the fees on time. You go to school with a fresh, curious, and creative mind, a mind that has no limitations, a mind that, if trained properly, could achieve anything. But as soon as you enter school, you are given a syllabus, a combination of subjects, and then that becomes your world. You think about them from morning till evening, you study them. And if you think about or study anything else, it affects your grades, and then you get punished. But do your parents ever question what these schools, colleges, and coaching centers are actually teaching their children? Is our child's future really bright? Does our child even like what they are being taught? No, because they feel that their child's future is being built, that their child is being made into a successful person. But if you think about it carefully, you will realize that the Industrial Revolution, wow, it was a time of big change and new ideas. It changed not just factories, but also how we think about education. Before this, education was mostly for the rich and powerful, but as industries grew, there was a need for more educated workers. Schools started focusing on practical skills and things you need to know for working in factories and offices. It was a time when people started to see education as a way to improve the economy instead of just a special thing for a few. The time when the British ruled India had a big effect on how India teaches its people. They brought a new way of teaching from the West. It focused on the English language and its books, science and math. This was very different from how India used to teach. They focused on religion and important life lessons. The British wanted to teach some Indians so they could help run their government. But this also made a big difference between the educated people and everyone else. This mix of good and bad is still seen in how India teaches today. Our current education system is a product of the industrial age. It's designed to produce workers for factories, not thinkers and creative people. It often focuses on memorizing facts and taking standardized tests, instead of helping students think critically and creatively. The job market today is a lot different than it was just 10 years ago. Many jobs from back then are done by machines or are done in other countries now. We have new industries and jobs popping up, and these jobs need skills that our schools aren't always teaching. So, what's the answer? We need to change our focus to a more well-rounded approach to education. One that focuses not just on school subjects, but also on life skills, emotional intelligence, and adaptability. We need to prepare students for the unknown future, not the certain past. To wrap things up, the world is changing, and how we teach needs to change too. If we make learning more flexible and focused on students, we can give young people the skills they need to succeed in a world that's always changing. Let's make education about exploring and discovering, not just about getting to the end.